Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now as you can see, I've got different cards displayed. Everything from Oracle deck to regular playing deck to Angel cards, which is another form of Oracle, and the Thoth deck. Now, a lot of people always ask me, what's the difference between your Oracles and your actual Tarot? So we're going to start with that. The difference between your tarot and your oracle decks is a few different things. But before we get into that, we need to get into the history of the actual tarot deck itself. Tarot, everybody thinks, has been around for thousands and thousands of years, when in reality, the first deck didn't come around till about 1375 to 1440. So when they were first made, they were hand painted. So it was one of those things that it was a specialty to have. Now, another thing that you may not know about tarot decks is that originally they weren't used for divination. They were actually used for like a playing deck. So you would have so many different cards. That's why you have 4 major arcanas in the deck itself. But it wasn't until later that tarot cards actually started getting used for oracle readings or prophecy readings, or as it's known today, as a tool of divination. Now that's said and that's out of the way, the word tarot is derived from taroth, or triumph. So that's a little bit of the history for you on different names that it's had throughout the century. Now, depending on what region you are in, depends on what they would call these. There's so many different names for tarot decks themselves, and the different formations that name has come into being. Now, back to the original question that we stated in the beginning. What is the difference between tarot and oracle cards? The difference between tarot and oracle cards is tarot cards, you're always going to have around the same arcanas. It's always going to be your swords, your cups, your wands, and your pentacles. And you're going to have at least 72 cards in your deck. Now, with oracle cards, it varies. There isn't no certain arcana that you have to follow, and they can range anywhere from a deck of 20 cards to 144 cards. Now, I've personally never seen a deck of 144 cards, but maybe you guys can comment below, show me some things that you found after this video, and let me know what you've seen. But with tarot is more of a yin and a yang. It's both the good and the bad. It's not just to give you messages of positivity or just a broad generalization. It brings in all aspects when you're doing your reading. Now, some people say, well, I can do that with my oracle cards. That's fine, because whenever you create a bond, no matter what cards you use, you're creating a bond between you and the cards and the universe itself. So maybe some people favor oracle cards. They do better with them. Some people favor tarot. Some prefer, regular playing deck of cards. It just really depends on you and your connection. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to stick with this. So, with your tarot decks, there's so many different spreads you can do. You can do spreads from Greek. You can do different spreads regionally, pretty much. You can do spreads that have been provided in books, or you can just do, everyone's personal favorite, past, present, and future. The 3-card draw. Now, the 3-card draw you can do with any of these cards. Some of them you might want to get more complex with, but that's up to you and your personal practice. Now, this deck right here, like I mentioned in the beginning, is called the Thoth deck. The Thoth deck was actually created by Aleister Crowley. A lot of people who come in contact with this deck either can't work it, or it's got so much energy to it that they can't stand to be around it. Now, there's a few people that are out there like me who actually know how to use this deck, use it not only for divination purposes, but within the ritual practice as well. Now, when this deck was created, as you can tell with this cross right here, there's some history behind that, and I'll link some links below, because honestly, I can't give it justice, and I can't remember the name of that this cross was based off of. So with that being said, we're going to move on and we're going to go to Oracle decks. Now, the first Oracle deck I'm going to go to is this one right here, which is called the Messenger Oracle. Now, we're going to go through it, and eventually at the end I'll show you all these decks so you can see what they are. Oracle decks, in my opinion, or at least how I've always used them, are quick answers. So if I want something that is quick and easy, then I'm going to pull out my Oracle deck. Either that, or I'm going to mix my Oracle deck with my actual tarot deck or my card deck and see what the combined energies tell me. Now, this one, as you can tell, is a very beautiful deck. This one is actually my husband's, but I tend to play with it because it's an Oracle deck and it's fun. And, you know, this is a great starter deck, like Oracle decks in itself, before you jump into tarot. It kind of gives you a baseline of reading, getting to know cards, learning different spreads within your cards. And then I would suggest moving on to a stronger deck like a tarot. And then it doesn't mean you have to get rid of the one that you got. You can mix and match in your readings. There's a lot of great videos online of people doing it. I've even started doing it within my own practice as well. But let's go ahead and look at this. Seek the answers within. Now, you'll notice a lot of these are flipped around. It's because with tarot, a lot of people say, well, I don't read the ones that are reversed. And here's my thing. Like, and this is my personal belief. You can take it. You can leave it. You can put it however you want it. But I believe that if you're not going to read the reverse cards, you don't know really what you're reading. For the reason being is reverse cards are there for a reason. Especially when you go through your like little book. Let's see if I can find one over here. If it'll pop out. Come on. No, I'm going to put that down for a second. Now, if you go through here, you're going to see all of your cards. It's a beautiful little book, you know what I mean? Pretty basic. And it gives you some good spreads, like the guide spread, just one. So, like your one answer questions, the soul and the shadow. That's a pretty good one. And then it goes through, like, the different cards within it. And it's a pretty good informational book. And it'll tell you all the things and such. Now, with oracle cards don't normally tend to go with the reverse side. So with oracle cards, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But when you get into books such as or tarot, you're going to want to look at that reverse side because it has a different meaning. When you're doing with oracle, I don't really say it has another meaning. But if it's paired with other cards around it, then yeah, I will be like, okay, you're going against the flow instead of with the flow. So that's why you need to surrender to it. I'm going to flip all these over because that's driving me nuts. But it's a beautiful deck. I mean, the artwork on it alone is very beautiful. And that's the thing, like with the artwork on oracle cards, there's so many different variations. And I think that's why there's so many more of the oracle than the tarot. Because the tarot, you have a basic system that you have to stick by. But with oracle, you can kind of play with it, have a little fun with it, and kind of do you. Okay, so now the next one that we're going to go on to, this is also a different oracle deck. And it is called the Enchanted Astrologer, which comes with this lovely little book here. Which, by the way, you're going to need this lovely little book. Because this deck is different than most oracle decks I found. This deck was actually gifted to me by one of my coven members. He's a really sweet guy. Thank you. You know who you are. So it covers the different houses and your astrology sign. It also covers the different zodiacs. It will go into your planets as well. Then you go into your north node. You got Mercury there. You know, they're very beautiful cards. And I love working with them because people, when you're giving readings, like with tarot, if somebody's never had a reading, then it's hard for them to pretty much go with it. They're like, oh God, I see the death card. Death is coming my way. No, not necessarily. It could be rebirth or destruction of one thing and to come out like a phoenix. You know what I mean? So with these cards, it's a little bit more easier for somebody who's never had a reading. And needs to be kind of eased into it, because we've all seen the zodiac. We've all looked at it in the newspaper, online. You know, it's not something that is too far-fetched for somebody to put their mind around. And the illustration on it is really pretty. I call it my favorite little girly deck. Just because it's got a lot of shades of pink and purples, and it's just pretty all together. Like, the artwork, the more you stare at it, the more you're just going to appreciate it, really. So this is for, I use these for the reason being that astrology-wise, it can open up a lot of things. It can tell you, almost like the tarot, it gives you what's going on around them, what their emotions are, how it's affecting them, and, you know, it gives them the situation at hand. And I like that. And it also gives some insight onto what is to be. So it's a cute little deck, and I fucking love it. Now, this is a book, ladies and gentlemen. Like, this is a book to tell you about your, like, I mean, look at that index. That's just insane. And it tells you each page, which I love for the reason being, you know, we have them books like this one, for example, and I'm meaning more towards the tarot than the oracle, where you're sitting there and you're trying to get used to your deck. You're trying to check out the meanings. You know, especially if it's your first time. There's a great, lovely little introduction there. Gives you some great suggestions as well. And then you start getting. And another great thing I love is right here, if you look, it shows your signs. So that's the first thing that you're going to cover is your zodiac signs. And then once you get past all that, you're going to start getting into your planets. And, you know, you could probably do some little notes right here if you wanted to. Or a little secret note for if you're getting this for somebody, you know what I mean? Be a cute little idea. And then when we get back in here, we get into the houses stage, and it just kind of goes from there. So, I mean, for this combo, it's great. For beginner, experience, or just someone who's getting more into the astrologer or astrology realm. Now, the Thoth deck. I'm not going to go through these, hopefully, and have to flip everyone. But they are very beautiful cards. They are very powerful cards. Every deck that you see on my table has either been given to me or I've somehow come to acquire it. And like I said, the energy when I first got this one, which was gifted me. By the way, thank you, my lady. It was the strongest energy that I had felt. And then, okay, Order Tempest Orientis. Aleister Crowley designed this tarot as a printed by Lady Farrah Harris and is now issued as the cards to use them to learn, to use them with the delicacy and great art to embark on the path. Now, I'm going to tell you, I actually got the book of Thoth that he wrote for this deck. And it is ridiculous. Like, it makes this book right here look like a baby. And you're sitting there thinking, how can you write so much about a deck? And he goes into the detail of why he put it that way. And if you actually do your research on it, when she was illustrating these cards, oh man, that girl went through some hell with it, because he had a certain vision in mind. And now, one thing I will say that I like about this better than most of your tarot decks, if you look right here, it says Valor, okay? And it's the 7 of Wands. So that kind of gives you something to go off of, even if you don't know the deck personally or what every card means as of right now. It gives you like a good basis to go on. And it's just so pretty. And then you got, of course, your major arcanas and your minors. Now, here's a fun fact. Back in the day when these were actually being used, not this one particularly, they would use them in card games. So I'm going to list a couple links to different card games that you can actually do with your tarot as well. I'm hoping that this shows up well, because I'm going through 72 cards. That's a lot of cards. Well, not including these other ones as well. But it's a very beautiful deck. I mean, look at the detail, the way that looks. It's just so pretty, like the snake and then the lady's body and this three-dimensional, almost trippy vibe to it. It's very beautiful. Now, most people fear this deck. I personally do not. I like it. I like the way that it looks, and I always notice something different. Now, most people will say, well, with this deck, you know, it doesn't work well with other decks. It will work well with other decks. You just got to give it time. My Thoth deck, at least, by the way, you get one blank one, so. Normally, I leave that in there just for the reason being, you know, I leave it as an unclear of what's to come. But just the illustration on it is just so pretty. She didn't suffer in vain, let's just put it that way. Alright, so we're going to go on to our next one. Okay, so I'm going to save this one for last, because you're going to be like, that's just a plain deck. Okay, so this one right here is called an angel deck. Now, this one also belongs to my husband, and I'm just going to go ahead and start showing you guys different cards now. So that way, as I'm telling you the information, you get to see what these cards look like and everything else. They're very beautiful. Now, when you're dealing with angel card decks, they're more of an inspiration, you know what I mean? Or, you know, what your angels or spirits or guides or whatever. Hey, look at that. I'm trying to get these all straight so that way, you know, we don't have to keep on doing this. Because I don't know about you guys, but that drives me up the wall. I've been needing to do this, which is another thing. I would say once a season, go through your deck and put them all back to the way to where they're one facing. I've always done that. It's kind of like a reset because every season itself is a reset. And they're just pretty. It just kind of gives you that extra, like, look, self-acceptance, divine goddess, new love, music, emerging. And I love using this with this deck as well. You wouldn't think the energies would go as well, but this is more of like, I'll show you a spread here in a little bit of what I do when I use my angel deck with it. And you don't have to do the same ones, like, and that's the thing, when you're doing different spreads, you don't have to go by what you see in a book. Create your own. It's just like anything else. It's not a scary thing. I know some people who are scared to write their own rituals. I'm like, look, as long as it's coming from you and you follow your direction, that is so pretty, isn't it? It's almost like a gothic romance type of feel, and it is romance, so it is fitting. But you can't be afraid. You can't live in the dark forever. You got to sometimes step into the light, even though it's scary. Or the reverse for my day walkers. You know, step into the darkness every once in a while. Now, here's a fun one. This one right here is a normal playing deck. As you can see, it's all normal. Now, with a normal playing deck, you have your spades. You have your hearts. You have your clubs. And you have your diamonds. Now, you're like, well, how can I use these to read? Matter of fact, gypsies use these for hundreds of years to read. It was an easier way to read your cards like this than to bring something like this out. They're obviously going to know. Let's be honest, the witching times and the burning times are still going on today, just not here in America that we know of. So, you're probably wondering, well, which fits for which? Okay. So, when it comes to your heart, these will be your cups. Spades, if I'm correct, is your swords. Clubs is your wands. Yeah. And then, let's see, clubs is wands, swords, chalice, pentacles. So, here's the thing. It's going to differ than tarot. So, you can't use meanings that you would find for tarot with these cards. Go online, find you one or two sources, use them, and you'll be good to go. Use them as your reference guide. Eventually, you'll get to the point to where you don't need them. It'll also tell you, like, with different suits, what that suit is more geared toward, if it's geared toward sorrow, love, work, whatever it may be. Now, when you're dealing with cups, you're dealing with emotion. When you're dealing with swords, you're dealing with all the bad things that could come. When you're dealing with clubs, you're dealing with your obstacles, and when you're dealing with your... Wait. Okay. Swords, clubs would be wands. Wands are, if I remember correctly, if I don't, I know you'll let me know, is your obstacles, and then this one is how to go about it. So, you know, as you can tell, we've already went through so many decks, and I wanted to do this video just to kind of enlighten people who may not be able to get to certain events and be able to do, you know, learn how to read cards, or you want to learn how to read, but you're kind of afraid to, you don't know how to go about it. And I will also, in the comments, link descriptions of the names, so that way you guys can find them. And thank you guys, and I hope you have a good night. Bye-bye.